Welcome to Constructive Conversations, the podcast where we explore private lending, real estate investing, and the leaders driving the industry forward. I'm Olivia Anthony, your host, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Constructive's very own Megan Castleton.
Thank you.
Megan is the Chief Credit Officer at Constructive and has a career that spans 20 plus years. And
almost 30 now. Yeah.
Almost 30 years.
Gosh, that's a long time.
No, it's not. Megan, you've had quite a career path. And before we jump into your leadership role at Constructive and how you were brought into or what brought you into the industry to begin with, I want to rewind the tape a bit. And I want to start with this because not everyone can say that they've been in the ring, literally. The Jurassic Originate report, there was an article a while back that featured your journey into and throughout boxing and how it parallels your career today. So I would love if you could start by taking us back to that time and maybe share some experiences, again, at that time and your transition from boxing to business.
So actually, I was already in the business when I started boxing. Okay. I started in the business when I was 17. So I was recruited at a bagel shop. You know, I would start really early in the morning, 4 a.m. And we had a lot of loan officers that would come in. I was in the Orange County area, and they would buy bagels every Friday. And we got to talking, and eventually one of the guys said, look, we're looking for someone that could do reception and deliver faxes. You know, this is back when, faxes were a thing and you'd have to stand there for hours and hours as this thing just came off the paper. And he said, it's a hot mess, and you would literally just deliver faxes and answer the phone and help us send out UPS and FedEx packages. And so that's literally how it started. At that point, I had left college. I had, played water polo, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do, right? I thought I wanted to be in the medical industry, and it didn't work out, right? So I was working at a bagel shop. In comes these guys, and they're like, come work with us. And that was it. I fell in love with the industry. So every Friday, and at State of the Union, it was crazy, right? You're 17. Yeah. These guys are driving super, fancy cars, and everyone's young, and it's really high energy, and you can learn anything that you want. So you could sit with people at night and learn how to speak on the phone if you wanted to be a loan officer. I sat with processors. I sat with underwriters. So I got to kind of see everything. And, I spent 3.5 years there, and they moved me up. I did docs, I did processing. And then finally it became, I think I really want to be in underwriting and credit. And so I actually was offered another job away from them. And that's really where it started. But I fell in love almost right away with the industry.
That's amazing. Yeah. And boxing as well.
Yeah. So I think I was 18 when I started boxing. I started just for exercise, for fun. And one of the guys thought, it was in Huntington Beach amongst MMA fighters that are extremely famous and have now retired. And they said, hey, we need someone to be a dummy and get in the ring and, help this guy train. And I was like, okay, that sounded like a great idea to me. So, I loved boxing. It was fun. It was exciting. And so that's how it started. And I actually held my own and got in a shot that actually knocked this guy on his butt while he was training for a fight. And so they were like, hey, you need to start training. Women weren't training at that time for UFC. Women weren't really in boxing. And so it was a challenge, and it was great. And, I spent the next, I think it was about 12 years boxing. So I would work, 10 and 12-hour days in the industry. I would get up at 4 a.m. I would run till 5. I would go to the gym. I would then go to work. I would finish work around 7 or 8. I would go to the gym and either train or run or lift weights and box. So yeah, it was a long time, but it taught me a lot about discipline. It taught me a lot about business, right? And so that article was really based on how those experiences really did help me in business, right? Yeah. So, you kind of pick your team and they pick you, and, that there was a lot of similarity to what was going on in the industry for me. And it really taught me to hold my own and to really focus on the things that I wanted. And, you'd been told, no, as a woman, you can't be in boxing. There's no competitions for you. There's no way. And, it was right before the first invitation for women into the Golden Gloves.
Yeah.
And so, the whole goal at that time for me was I wanted to go and box in the Olympics. It was another 10 years from that point before they finally let women into boxing. So unfortunately I missed my window, but it was a lot of fun, and I continued my career path here.
In that article, you talk about building resilience, listening to the voice inside your head, and reference imposter syndrome. How did you learn to quiet that inner critic, or do you still deal with it today?
Yeah, we deal with it today, right? So we were laughing before this podcast that it's hard to get up here and talk about yourself, even though there's not a live other people staring at you, but it's just something that, coming from operations, you were really in the background. It was really about other people and helping other people shine through your work, right? And the teams that you led. So it's only been very recent that I've been able to, feel more comfortable at conferences and feel more comfortable in front of the camera and feel more comfortable speaking. Mm-hmm. And really, I have to say a lot of that came from the team and the teams that I've had throughout my life. But I've been very lucky to have some amazing mentors in my life. I call them my mortgage moms. And really, they've raised me up in the industry, right? Wow. And they were the ones who continued to push me to speak and to be confident in myself. And I'll even give a little shout out to Kendra Rommel. So I met Kendra a number of years ago. Kendra started very young, like I did too. And, I would sit down and have these conversations with her, and she really became a mentor of like, you've got to be you, and you've got to be unauthentic, you've got to be authentically you, and not worry about how other people are taking it and what they're saying. And, if you come from a place of knowledge and the background that you have, like, people are going to hear that. Right. And, I came to Constructive, and that was even more amplified. Right. So Ben is like, I hired you to be you, right? I hired you for the things that you can do. I hired you for the background that you have. I don't want you to change it. I want you to be you. And so, I think as not only women, but as just professionals, there's always this doubt. You're always, absolutely, and you have to be a self-aware person, right? You have to be able to ask yourself, is that the right, thought? And is that the right way to interpret these things, especially in credit, because we're type A people. You really want to make sure that you're accurate and you're correct. And so you're pretty hard on yourself. And, at the end of the day, you have a great team around you that's like, hey, you could do this better. Or what if we tried it like this? And so, it's a constant evolution, and it's been really helpful.
Yeah. I think leadership mentors, they play a large part in all of that. Yeah. I was going to ask, how did you become who you are today? You seem very confident. I don't know if anyone has heard Megan on a panel, in other webinars. You are very well spoken, very confident. I was humbled to read that you had these experiences as well. So would you credit to most of, mentorship, just experience, exposure? Yeah,
mentorship, experience, exposure. For me, I never said no, right? So even if I wasn't getting paid for the job, even if it wasn't something that I knew how to do, I just said yes, and I learned, right? So you had someone that was like, hey, you want to try this? Sure. Yeah. I can try that. And so it was just constantly getting that experience and that exposure. I also didn't stay linear in my path. I've crossed between banks and residential, and then true alternative credit through the subprime phase of my life. And, it was always, what's similar about these things, right? That I can draw from, and putting the different pieces of the puzzle together really started to fascinate me, and how interrelated all of these different types of lending were. And that you could really draw from what's great and what's working in other parts of the industry. And that's really what became my strength, is having all these disparate things, right? So I landed in hard money lending back in the day. That's a terrible word now, but I was in hard money lending, and I helped to raise a platform. And I kept being told, you don't belong here. Like, people from residential, this isn't your space. And it's funny, because as the evolution of the business and of lending happened, more and more and more institutional capital came into this space, and more people were looking for the technology and how do we do these things bigger, better, faster, right? And how do we deliver to institutional? They have a different language, they have a different path that they are expecting from their partners. And so it really became that background that actually helped me really grow my career here on the private lending side.
So fast forward to today, Constructive.
Yeah.
After all of that experience, what ultimately drew you to Constructive Capital? Was there something specific about our mission? Is Ben Pertig just a really good salesman?
Yeah, Ben's a really good salesman. No. Ben was tremendous, right? So actually, I met Ben Jackson first, and he had heard me speak at a roundtable or a panel, and we just started a conversation from that point. And I was doing a lot of freelancing and contracting, and kind of had my own team.
I remember that exact panel. I was
Yeah.
there.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Ben actually made a comment to me. He said, "Who is that?"
Yeah, apparently I got a lot of that. I don't know if that's good or bad. So, yeah, you know, he started to call, and we would just have conversations about things, and, you know, how would I solve this problem, or how would I look at something like that? And he said, I really need you to sit down with Vertig. I think there's something here. And, you know, at first I was like, you know, I would love to meet him and talk to him. I had seen him speak. He's just so eloquent, and, you know, he just knows so much about the industry. But the more and more I talked to Ben and I came from the same place, right? Vertig was, you know, a young guy in this space. He made his own way. He started up into, you know, management, and really started to manage teams and leadership. And, you know, there was just so much synergy there through our conversations. He's so passionate about broker advocacy. He's passionate about a good experience. He's passionate about the product that we bring to the market, and the why and the how. And, you know, of all the ownership that I've ever met, you know, Ben understands it down to the fine minutia, right?
Oh,
and he really understands the details. And so we could engage in these really deep conversations around product and process and people and timing and, you know, all these different exciting things in the market. And the more and more and more that I talked to Ben, I couldn't shake it. It was this feeling of like, I really like everyone I've spoken to here. There's just, you know, for an incredibly large business, we are an incredibly tight-knit, small team.
Yep.
We still have a lot of relationship. There's just a lot of camaraderie, which is not out there in the market. Ben does amazing things for his employees.
Yep.
I mean, it's the whole package, right? So how could you not want to be a part of it?
Right.
And someone's telling you, do all the things that you do, all the passion projects that you've ever wanted to do, write it, be it, bring it here. And we understand that. We understand where you're coming from. We understand how that fits into the market and into our plan as a company. And we want more of that. And so, you know, it was one of those things you couldn't say no. I wanted to say no. I couldn't say no. But no, I love it here. You know, it's been tremendous to have all the opportunity that I've had with Constructive, and to get to do the projects that, you know, I've been trusted to do. So it's been great.
Well, first I'll say shout out to Ben Pertig and Ben Jackson for making that connection.
Yeah,
I know
guys,
we made the right
thanks.
choice. So let's dig into one of the most well-known terms in our space, which is DSCR.
Yeah.
It's one of our core product offerings. But what's at the heart of its success for Constructive?
You know, I think for Constructive, it's the relationship, right? Ben really understands the product. He understands how it acts in the market. He understands the end user and the customer. Yep. And, you know, he's really built a product and capital around, and the execution, right? And the process around being able to deliver that product in a timely way at a great price. And it's innovative product, right? So DSCR isn't just, you know, this single flat thing, right? And Ben believes, like I believe, credit is not just this single flat thing. It has to be operational. It has to move throughout the entire process that you have, and it can't hinder that process, right? It has to be able to continue to grow. And, you know, DSCR kind of came into the space, you know, with a huge growth of construction, a lot of ground up construction, a lot of fix and flip. And it was like, where does this product go? Right. What does it do? This really started that build to rent, you know, hot button that you see everywhere now. But I mean, build to rent really started because there was a different exit beyond just selling it. Wealth was really accumulating properties, and DSCR has really come in to fill that need, and really grew investors, mom and pop investors that maybe had one or two rental properties were now able to, cash out or take some of their earnings and go out and buy more and more properties that were cash flowing. And that's really the strength of the product. And I think what has helped drive it. We have different offerings than the market in DSCR. So, we're able to do portfolios, which is, a unique product. You can do multiple properties, you're qualifying at the individual property level. And then as an overall, you can kind of blend out some of the things that are happening, whether it's, value of the underlying property, maybe a little bit lighter on a couple of the properties as far as DSCR, but you can really take these swaths of these ground up construction projects and really now move them into, in a very seamless way into a DSCR long-term product that, have rentals.
Yeah.
We do blankets and wraps, right? So blanket, simple wrap, all the underlying properties are underwritten, but it's underwritten under one large umbrella loan, which is great for investors. They don't want a bunch of multiple payments. It's easier to track and manage their finances, right? And so it's really understanding what they need and how they behave, right? And then it's teaching our broker partners, or our broker partners also teaching us, right? One of the things I think Constructive has done really, really well is listen to its partners and really understand, what do you need? What does the product have to do for you in order for you to attract more customers and us to provide the capital?
Yeah. Wraps and blankets. How do these two differ? And
so wraps and blankets are kind of used interchangeably, right?
Okay.
So it's multiple properties under one loan, but they're all individually qualifying. They're not really seen, we do up to 20 properties inside a blanket or wrap. So it's not really seen as a commercial transaction, whereas portfolio really is, right? So you can have 100 property, 50 properties that are sitting under there. It has a different DSCR calculation, right? So it's called an NCF DSCR calculation. It's really understanding the entire operating expenses and costs that exist in that building. So, trash, sewer, water, things that you don't normally count into your residential DSCR calculation, you count into your NCF DSCR calculation, right?
Okay.
So it's really being able to use that to capitalize in a singular structure and kind of blend out. Whereas the wrap is one payment, up to 20 properties, and it's really structured in a way to get you one payment for all these dispersed properties, right? So they could be across different cities, state lines, where portfolio has a little bit more restriction there to what the product does, but it has some benefits there, the way that you're able to blend out the underlying property level items.
When would one structure make more sense than the other?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have a lot of properties, right, and you're looking to have one loan, you've got 150 properties, a portfolio is probably more of a structure for you, right? You want a singular payment. You want to put all those properties into that singular loan. You qualify on the commercial, kind of blended DSCR as well as the underlying. Whereas, maybe you have 10 or 15 or maybe even 3 or 4 properties, and you want to go through the blanket process because you want one loan, but it's really more of a residential style transaction, right? So very large investors, commercial grade investors usually are going to go for something more like that. They have 1,500 properties. They want to do them into one loan. Then the portfolio is for that, right? Blankets and wraps, they have a number of properties, but they're maybe scattered throughout different states, and they don't necessarily qualify on an NCF DSCR. Then you can take them down into a blanket and wrap and do them in smaller tranches that way too.
Okay. So let's now talk about another product we offer. DSCR isn't the only star of the show. Yeah. Residential transitional loans, aka RTL, aka fix and flip. Yeah. Can you tell me more about this product?
So, I mean, everybody knows RTL, right? Residential transitional loans. It is what it is. It's a short-term duration loan. It's there for, minor improvements, carpets and paint as, tenants or someone is moving out of a property. RTL is good because, there is a huge aging stock of housing that's happening in America, right? How do you get this aging stock of houses out to the market? Well, that's really the the purpose of RTL, right? These investors come in to neighborhoods that are run down, older neighborhoods, and they revitalize and regentrify the area, right? So it's super important that they're out there able to have access to strong financing that we provide, that they're able to go out into these markets and provide end users with housing, and updated good housing, right? So there's that form of fix and flip, and it goes from light to heavy, or there's the ground up product, right? Yeah. So ground up is, there's a housing shortage too, oddly enough, around the US. I'm sure everybody's familiar, at least in most geographies, right? And so being able to build housing and bring, especially workforce housing, affordable housing to people is part of the mission of Constructive. And so I think that's really important to be able to capitalize and power the end user, the investor, at the end to go out into the market and do these actions, right? And in between all of that is the broker, and it's the lifeblood of the mortgage industry, right? So you've got your independent mortgage bankers, you've got, your individual mom and pop brokers. The products have been here for a long time, right? But making them accessible to the broker, making them accessible to a conventional IMB, and helping them understand what are the questions that you have to ask in order to do this loan well for your customer, right? Yep. How do we support them in that process so that, again, they can bring in more investors and be able to deliver more housing to the market? You look at all the different products that are out there on the market in RTL, in fix and flip. Part of the attraction to RTL is the speed of execution, right? So you have a bridge loan, you have a purchase contract, and you need to close in 5 days. How are you going to do that when you have to go get an appraisal, right? So Constructive came in with some options there. And, if the loan is under $500,000 and up to a certain amount of renovation, we can do, an alternative to an appraisal where, we can get a valuation done fairly quickly. I would say a couple days that we can turn it around, have something solid to work for that now has been, allowed in securitizations. And again, so it just continues to improve the speed of execution. And, I've worked with a lot of folks in the RTL space, and I've worked for a lot of folks in the RTL space, and it's a unique product offering. It truly reminds me of hard money, right? To be able to have some of this flexibility and do some of these things. And it's what's really attractive about this space is that you're not just locked into this box. Everybody has a different take on the product. Yeah. They have a different capital structure. They have a different, end user, right? Yeah. And so, it's exciting to be here and be able to go through this process and bring products to market that reduce the friction point, right? And can you do an RTL loan without an appraisal? The answer is Constructive can. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of the variety of products and positions our counterparts take and we take on certain products and offerings, where does line of credit fall into all of this?
Line of credit is one of my favorites, right? So, you watch kind of how the market really picked up speed in aggregation channel, and it's really been some of these line of credit that has driven some of these guys that were maybe smaller to mid-level developers, right? That really needed to have reliability of execution and capital. And they needed to not have to go back through the underwriting process over and over and over and over again, right? And how much can I spend, and how many properties can I buy, and what can I do at the end of the year became a planning and a logistical nightmare for them. So line of credit products offer them, the ability to execute, not constantly have their credit pulled, which lowers their FICOs over time, to know, okay, I have $5 million that I can go and put out into the market. And it starts them, right? So they're doing one and they're taking it off and they're replacing it with another one. And it really becomes a manufacturing channel for mid to larger developers. So It's a fantastic product. And it's something that the execution of is a little bit difficult, right? The servicing of those kinds of loans becomes challenging sometimes. The asset management of credit lines becomes challenging. It's, having the right manufacturing process and the right technologies and the right people there. I mean, we have some really talented folks here, right? Yeah. You guys are able to do with such a small team. We are able to execute to the level of, $2 billion plus a year. And, it's a testament to the product, and it's a testament to the people, and it's a testament to the relationships that Constructive has.
I want to come back to the team, but I also want to zoom out a bit. A lot of brokers are new to the non-QM world. Mm-hmm. For conventional brokers, it's an entirely new world. What would you say to someone just getting started, entering the space? Where do they start, essentially?
I mean, it was foreign to me, right? It was like speaking English and all of a sudden walking into Japan and everyone's speaking Japanese, right? It's a totally different set of terminology and lingo, but it rhymes with, right? And so our job and our want in the space is to make that bar for entry even lower, to be able to provide to our brokers and our partners education, to be able to help them understand the space, to have them be able to set up on our system, right? You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you need until you enter the space, right?
That's right?
But this is where the capital is. This is where the margin has moved to. Brokers are looking for the next thing to be able to provide not only for their families, but for their customers and have options. If you as a company cannot reach these IMBs and the brokers and teach them the business alongside you, as well as support them with different capital structures, so maybe you start out brokering, you need some support, you don't have a portal, you don't have a team to process for you. Well, we have a channel for that.
Yeah.
If you're a little bit more advanced down your evolution as a broker and IMB, you have a team that can process and underwrite, can support you on that, right? We can do anything you need us to do in order to support the growth of that business channel. And it's important because, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, there was kind of this shutout of, oh, well, they're conventional and they're resi and, there's no place for that here. And what's exciting about Ben and Constructive is there's always a place for them. And the whole purpose and point of what we do is to make that product accessible and available. And we're always, innovating product and process and technology in order to be able to deliver a product and to educate our brokers and get education from our brokers, right? It's an ever-changing world. I think the most important thing that someone told me in my career is, you have to be able to evolve, or you're going to go the way of the dinosaur. You'll become extinct, right? And we've seen companies go extinct because they're so steadfast in their thought process and what's right and what works for them that they forgot about everyone else around them, right? They forgot about the end user. They forgot about the customer. They forgot about the relationship. And Ben's told stories about it too. At the end of the day, Ben would take from his own pocket because of the relationships that we have with our brokers in order to deliver the product on our word, on the lock that we have there. And, it's almost unheard of in this space.
Right.
It's incredibly rare as a person. It's incredibly rare as a business to see it. I mean, he talks about it, but he truly, truly lives that mantra of what works best for our broker. How do we grow them? How do we change them? How do we help make this an easier transition for them? I love that part of this space, right? It's how do you put all these different puzzle pieces together into something that's usable and expedient and great? And how do you get a great customer service experience from credit, which just seems so blah and boring, right?
Yeah.
It's really what it is. It's breathing life into credit and making it operational.
Yeah. So behind every great deal and loan, aside from empowering and supportive leadership, is a solid operations team.
Yes.
What sets our team apart? What makes them so special?
Just this incredible ability to come together no matter what, right? It's just this drive to be the best, to do the best. Ben's leadership breathes down into the entire operation, everyone, not just sales. your underwriters, your processors, your setup folks, your funders, your closers, everybody throughout the business, right? And for such a small team, they're so mighty, right? They can do anything. They want to do it. They're passionate the same way that, when you hear Ben speak, he's very passionate. I'm very passionate. Tess is very passionate, right? So you have this really dynamic group of leaders, and then this just incredible team that, they've handpicked to be here to deliver this mission to our customers, right? So everybody works extremely hard. There's a lot of overtime. There's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of planning that goes on. It just, and even when it's hard, we're able to laugh and have a good time together, right? So no, it's an incredible team.
So where do you see the biggest opportunities for Constructive Capital in, I'll say 2025 upcoming?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's technology, it's product, and it's people, right? We're at a place in our growth where we kind of have to reduce the friction in the process, right? So how do we do that? How do we go out to market and continue to give a consistent, great customer service experience? And, like most of the world, it's technology, but in the private lending space, we're unique. There's not a lot of technology that's built for private lenders. That, LOSs aren't built for private lenders, right? So it's making this Frankenstein of a process in order to get the output that you need. And, we've been really lucky to have some amazing technology partners. There's a lot of things that I've worked on in the institutional space that Ben was really, really open to, and Tess was really open to, and they've allowed us to start, bringing that here. So I think one of the biggest things that we're going to see out of Constructive is cutting edge, innovative technology that allows us to deliver the product bar none best in the space. And I mean, that's the goal ultimately. I think from there too, we've started the process already is how do we innovate product? How do we continuously change the product so that it fits the needs of our customers and our clients?
Right.
So, we're continuing to evolve and put out new product and evolutionize kind of the product that we have right now into, something that continues to be usable and needed in the market because it's changing.
Yep. A lot of exciting things coming.
Yeah,
Can't give away too much of our secret sauce, but
yeah, the secret sauce. And you see it at the conferences and you see it, it's coming, right? So again, evolve or go the way of the dinosaur. And what's exciting is, there's everyone else's thought process and they have an idea of how these pieces go together. But going across all these different channels and being able to take the best of the best and retool it into something that is so unique, and is honestly revolutionary, like to be able to imagine the process differently. What if people didn't have to fill that out? What if the process actually started in a different place? How does a broker interact? Where does their process start? We are as a company too, and I think it's another strength of Constructives is we are always looking at ourselves and our processes and ways to evolve and change. And we do these Kaizen events, right? Ben is a huge advocate of Lean Six Sigma and Kaizen type of activities. Businesses that do that continue to innovate and grow. And so to be able to come here and think all the crazy wild ideas that I think in my sleep of how this goes together, what if we had this product or what if we did this product like this, who would be the user and how does it go? Like those are the things that I get to do here that has not always been welcome in some of my former career paths. So it's a push to innovate. It's a push to be different. And it's really exciting.
Before I give my closing statement, is there anything you want me to ask or bring up?
No, thank you for letting me do this with you. This has been a lot of fun. I'm newer to Constructive, and so, it's so exciting to be embraced by everybody, from the minute that these conversations have started. Our broker base and our clients are they're phenomenal. They're, every day is exciting. I'm excited to get up every day. I'm excited to go to work. I'm excited to see what we do next. And, I've been in this industry for a long time. It's 29 years now, going on 30. To have that passion come back in such a way now, and to be able to execute on all these ideas that I've been sitting on for 10 years and only being able to do little bits and pieces of it, right? Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has welcomed me here. Thank you to our team. Thank you to Ben and to Tess for trusting me. I'm really excited to see what we do in 25.
I'll thank Ben and Tess as well for bringing you to Constructive Capital.
Thank you.
And I think I speak on behalf of all teams at Constructive. You have brought an energizing energy, and it's felt by all teams. And I think that we're really lucky to have you. Thank you for joining me and sharing your experience and insights into Constructive Capital's mission.
Great. And we're always here if you need us. Please give us a call or visit our website, our broker portal, talk to our sales team. Don't be afraid. We're here to help you. We're here to continue to support your business and your growth. And we look forward to meeting you.
For over 20 years, LiquidLogix has been revolutionizing loan management with their cloud-based loan origination software. Built specifically for private and hard money lenders, their Nova platform streamlines the entire lending process, from origination to servicing, ensuring efficiency, transparency, and a seamless borrower experience. With cutting-edge technology and customizable solutions, LiquidLogix helps lenders stay ahead in a competitive market. If you want to see how they can transform your lending operations, visit liquidlogix.com to learn more.